This week, Manly Seagulls lock in their future and the Big Bash is merging in Melbourne. Welcome back to the Sports Playbook. I'm Daniel and we are Australia's weekly sports news podcast covering both men's and women's sport. So here's the week in sport and everything coming up this weekend. In Rugby League, Connor Watson signs with the Dragons and the PNG Chiefs. Yes, you did hear me right. Connor Watson has signed to two clubs, so he'll be leaving the Sydney Roosters at the end of 2026. Connor will first be going to the Dragons on a one-year deal, which is a great recruitment from the Dragons. Whoever's in the Dragons recruitment team should get a gold star because they have got some fantastic players coming to the club in 2027. But the big attraction here is after that one-year deal, Connor will take his talents to the PNG Chiefs. He is Chiefs player number 3, so he'll be going there on a 2-year deal. In his second stint at the Sydney Roosters, he's been at the club since 2022, and he's been an integral part to the Roosters lineup, in particular in that utility role. For the former New South Wales Blues, he's still in contention for Game 2, and this is because Blake Brayley has broken his arm last weekend, so Connor stands a chance at getting back into the New South Wales Blues team. In football, Katie McCabe moves from Arsenal to Chelsea. In a shock signing, the Irish captain has become one of the signings of the off-season. The left back has left London rivals Arsenal to move to Chelsea. The deal runs until June of 2029, and an important part for Chelsea is they have an additional year in their favour to extend McCabe if they want to. For Arsenal, McCabe has had over 300 appearances for this club, so with Katie leaving, that leaves a massive hole for the Arsenal team. But Chelsea reap the benefits. In Rugby Sevens, Australia take out the World Championship leg in Spain for the men's and the women's. Both teams won the tournament outright. For the women's team, they defeated New Zealand in the semi-final. In all of the championship legs so far, New Zealand have beaten Australia 5 times, but Australia struck their revenge and beat them in the semi-final 28-26. They iced the tournament, defeating the USA in the final 27-14. And in the men's tournament, they defeated South Africa in the final 26-19. And for the Australian women's team, they now lead the Rugby Sevens World Championship by 2 points from New Zealand heading into the final weekend in Bordeaux. In netball, Helen Housby has been ruled out of the Commonwealth Games. For Housby, she's been out indefinitely since early April, and the reason for it is because Housby has picked up a stress fracture in her lower back. For Helen, it's unfortunately bad timing, with the Commonwealth Games less than 50 days away, plus all Suncorp Super Netball players' contracts will expire at the end of 2026. And for Helen, she's going into contract negotiations injured. But Helen's talents speak for herself. She's been a New South Wales Swifts since 2017, and it's highly likely that Helen will get re-signed with the club as she's integral to this team. In tennis, Serena Williams is back. That is right, the 23-time Grand Slam champion has confirmed a comeback is on. Williams has accepted a wildcard for the doubles tournament at the Queen's Club in London. This tournament is a precursor to Wimbledon in July. At 44 years of age, Williams has the experience to shake up the Queen's Club. Now, we don't know who Serena's doubles partner is, but that is set to be confirmed in the coming weeks. One to watch, and I'll keep you posted on the Sports Playbook. And in cricket, the Sydney Thunder have signed Freddie Flintoff. In one of the most significant off-field signings for the Sydney Thunder, they have locked in Andrew Freddie Flintoff as their BBL head coach until the end of BBL 17 season. For Freddie, he actually played in the Big Bash back in BBL 04, and he played for the Brisbane Heat. But this is a monumental signing for the Sydney Thunder. Unfortunately, results have not gone the way of this team. The reality is the Sydney Thunder have only won one BBL season back in BBL 05. And for Freddie Flintoff, it is a great time to come into this club to change things up. But what this also means is it might invite England internationals into the Sydney Thunder team. So one to watch for the Big Bash season coming up. Well, honestly, that was quite the big stories from the week. But we are far from over because there is two major talking points to come from the week. I couldn't split them, so I chose two. So the first one is Manly Sea Eagles have locked in their new head coach. And you guessed it, it's Kieran Foran. They've secured the services of Kieran Foran as head coach until the end of 2029. As rugby league fans have affectionately called it, FozBall. FozBall has taken over the NRL in the last 9 weeks. The reality was, when Kieran took over as coach, Manly were 0-3. They were last on the ladder and they just sacked Anthony Seibold as head coach. Kieran Foran, as recent assistant coach, comes into the team and fundamentally changes how Manly plays. They've only now dropped 2 games in the past 9. And those 2 games were up against the Penrith Panthers, where they only lost by 2 points, and the Cronulla Sharks, where they only lost by 6. For me, this has to be one of the most exciting signings so far in 2026, and Kieran has absolutely earned this. He's one of the most exciting coaches alongside Benji Marshall. They are coming through and fundamentally changing how NRL coaching will work going forward. This matters for the Manly Sea Eagles as they will now be able to start serious contract negotiations with some of those big players. And all you have to do is look at Jake Trbojevic. He was probably unlikely to re-sign with the Manly Sea Eagles if Anthony Seibold had stayed on as head coach. But Jake showed his faith and Manly have rewarded him with a 1-year contract extension. And Jake will likely see out his days as a Manly Sea Eagle, which is exciting for everyone involved. And the best part, Kieran can now coach the side knowing that this group is his for a long period of time, because now Manly become a genuine finals threat, if not a premiership threat, with Kieran Foran as coach. And in cricket, the Melbourne BBL teams are set for a monumental shake-up. The Melbourne Renegades are set to be sold as a franchise to a private investment group. Meanwhile, the Melbourne Stars are set to be renamed under the Cricket Victoria banner. Let's start with the Renegades. It looks like that this club will be sold to private investment. Now, this has not been confirmed or approved by Cricket Australia or the Australian Cricket Association. So there's 2 hurdles for this to still go through. But fundamentally, what this means is Cricket Victoria will be opening up expressions of interest for private investment to bid on the Melbourne Renegades franchise. Now, let's look to the Melbourne Stars. The Melbourne Stars will not be playing in that lime green with the star. What looks likely, this team will become Victoria and they might be named the Bush Rangers. And the Bush Rangers goes back to where Victoria call their ODI and Sheffield Shield teams. It's important to note that will now become the Navy Blue of Victoria. What is still unclear at this stage is whether the Melbourne Stars and the Melbourne Renegades will compete under their respective current brands for this upcoming BBL season. Now, this is massive for the Big Bash, in particular because Cricket Australia wanted to introduce a privatisation plan to all the BBL teams. But what has happened is New South Wales and Queensland have not accepted the original proposal. South Australia were particularly keen in a hybrid proposal. Meanwhile, Victoria, Tasmania and Western Australia with those franchises were keen on bringing in private investment. So Victoria looks like they have bit the bullet and the Melbourne Renegades is set to be sold off. This could potentially bring in $180 million to Cricket Australia and in particular Cricket Victoria. Now let's head into our weekend preview. The first big game to mark on the calendar in the NRL. The Manly Sea Eagles will take on the Rabbitohs on Thursday, the 4th of June. This is a massive clash. For the Rabbitohs, they are still without Latrell Mitchell and they won't have him until round 17. For Manly, they will look to bounce back. They lost to the Sharks by 6 points, but Kieran Foran's re-signing news is set to galvanise this team. Due to the re-signing news, it's not going to be called Four Pines Park, it's going to be called FozPine Park, an absolutely perfect addition thanks to Four Pines. In the second game to look forward to this weekend, it's on Monday, June the 8th, it's AFL, Collingwood takes on Melbourne. Now the game itself is a massive one. For Collingwood, they are coming off a massive defeat from the Western Bulldogs, and the Melbourne Demons sit in 6th currently. So Collingwood will want to try and bounce up the ladder as they currently sit 11th in the AFL. But what's even bigger than that is this game is all for the big freeze, Fight MND and Neil Danaher. Before the game, there will be the big slide, where big celebrities will go down the slide in their chosen personalities, and this is one to absolutely watch. Fight MND is an incredible charity. They have raised over $140 million to try and find a cure to fight MND. And this one is a special one. Unfortunately, Neil Danaher passed away 1 week ago. And for the Danaher family, this will be the first time that the Big Freeze will be going ahead without Neil Danaher. And as Neil Danaher will always say, play on. And in the third game to look forward to this weekend, it's the netball. It's the Melbourne Derby. The Melbourne Vixens will take on the Melbourne Mavericks. For the Vixens, they're coming off probably their biggest defeat to date. They lost to the Adelaide Thunderbirds by 19, but the Mavericks are on an absolute roll. They defeated the West Coast Fever last week, and if they beat the Melbourne Vixens, they will definitely punch their ticket into the Suncorp Super Netball Final Series. And if they do that, this will be the first time that this club gets into the Final Series. This is only their third season in Super Netball, so this is a massive feat. If they can do it, there's a lot riding on this, so one to watch, 2 p.m. on Sunday. That is your sports week sorted. So enjoy the weekend, and I'll be back on Tuesday as it's the long weekend this weekend with a full wrap. So until then, follow the Sports Playbook. We are your go-to for fast sport news without the noise. Please send this podcast to one person who has never listened to the Sports Playbook before. Make sure they get their fast sport news. Thank you for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.